you very much.
I just have a couple of questions, and then we can open it up. One is, how do I say this? Howard was a great filmmaker, not only for those films that he is acknowledged for, but I mean, he's a great filmmaker because of that last clip we see in the film, which is this extraordinary video diary. So my question, I guess, is how did you choose what you were going to include of what he himself shot?
Well, what was interesting was he was shooting, I mean, on one side he was documenting things and life, but he was doing it in like the pre-iPhone YouTube age. So he was shooting it with a kind of filmmaker's eye, as if it was 16 mil running through the camera, and it was precious. So there were specific moments that he would focus on, and he was never overtly specific why he was shooting it. You know, he started keeping a video diary. We worked out backwards from when he knew he was sick, but he never talks about that. He just will look at the camera and start talking about what if it was someone young. It's more like a meditation on death. And it was kind of just very easy to get inside Howard's head and see the world as he saw it in that moment, that this clip has a lot of meaning to his story. I don't know. I mean, as soon as I saw that dancing video to the Pretenders song, where he's talking about Luis, who was his agent, who also died from AIDS, that he was using this moment to talk about somebody else close to him, and dancing and everything. That was just, I don't know, with his goofiness and the sunset, you know, that was always the end of the film. And that was just very Howard.
The film essentially is a portrait, and it's a portrait made with great love. But it's also a piece about a period and a New York that's gone, and that statement of, if these people had not died, we might be in a very different place here, rings so true. And for me, that's what the film is about. I mean, it's finding that world that was cut short. So I think what I want to ask is that I think the edit must have been enormously difficult, because you had all this wonderful material, and you had the context of Howard, and then you had Howard himself.
It was extremely difficult. And William Burroughs. Just making sense of that is kind of complicated. No, it was extremely intellectually taxing, and there were so many storylines, but also physically. I mean, just getting, you know, it's like we walk out of the bunker with all those film cans, which seems great. Now you can go. In reality, you've got 300 cans of 16 millimeter film, and they're not synced up to the sound, and there's no log notes or anything. And so then it started to dawn on us how much money we would need just to be able to see it. So I would go to like an institution maybe, or whoever, and say, okay, I need whatever amount of money, thousands of dollars, to transfer this amazing archive. They say, oh, great, can we see it? It's like, well, no, I need your money so that we can see it. And they would kind of hesitate. So it took a long time just to be able to transfer that. And then to make sense of it, sync it up. Most of the slates we use in that sequence where you see Howard. So it was really difficult. Plus finding things all over the globe. We were kind of assembling our own archive in a way while trying to make sense of it in an edit with these multiple storylines. Yeah.
No, I think the editing in the end took like a year and a half, but it was done by two different people. Like the final editor of the film is Masahiro Hirakubo, who's an extremely seasoned editor and helped really put the structure together. But also Aaron worked a lot of drafts of ideas and emotions with another wonderful, less seasoned editor, but a guy who really wanted to do the journey with him. And also, I think what really helped is at some point we didn't have the money or the material that we could see, but we did have the tapes. So Aaron was doing a lot of potential edit notes with just the sound, and was being really, like putting a lot of dedication into that, like almost someone who gets up at a certain time of day and sits down to write, like a writer's routine. He was doing that from a sound routine as a filmmaker. I think that also helped create this 1.5 year long work. Yeah, the safety sound rolls that we had. Yeah.
I want to ask a question about the materials themselves, which I know have been digitized, but what is going to happen to these materials, which is much more material than is actually in this film itself?
Well, we would love to know what's going to happen. We had many blueprints by now, like many plans about to happen, and that fell through recently, another one. So we don't know. We still try to find a house for the material. The material is right now in storage. We have a storage place that the material is in. Is not the proper place. We know that. We want a house for the material where people can also access it, and that's not very easy. We realize that in the world of preservation, there is the preservation of the actual object, and there's the preservation of the material, of what we see, and not the two worlds are together or combined in a way that will allow audiences to really access it. And for us, the availability of the material for the people is very important. So we so far haven't found the right partner to do the two things. We hope that we will. We will continue relentlessly as we have so far, but it's been a really long journey, and it's not proving any easy. By the day, labs are closing, they're throwing things away. Film takes space, and it's very expensive to really preserve it as an object. And the archive itself, I think we are creating some pieces to reframe the archive as well. So we are trying to put together some artwork that will reframe the archive, and we are doing a little exhibition of that maybe in London next year, and maybe tour it. And then there is the rest of all the archive, which can go on a digital platform. Yeah, people say, why don't you upload it in YouTube? But that really wouldn't resolve the problem of the archive right now. We are working. We will probably hear someone say something and we will follow through, and hopefully something will happen, or it could happen what has happened so far, which is it doesn't quite happen.
Well, let's have volunteers to put up money for an archive, or let's have questions from out here.
It reminds me when we were doing the Burroughs film. Like people were saying, no, but oh my God, you found that film. Anyone will put money. Like people, you call them, they would just write a check, and you'll be like, oh great. So you will call people and say, hey, we need this for this film. And people will be like, how much money do you need? Well, X. Why nobody has given it to you? This is really suspicious. No, I'm not giving it. I don't think so. So it was like a catch-22 thing. So yeah.
Questions out here? Yeah, in the back in a white shirt.
We are distributing the film ourselves with the Film Collaborative, which is a group of collaborators. And we will open, and with the help of Sundance Artist Services, it will open November 18th at IFC. Tell your friends. So November 18th, we will have a run in New York, and depending on that run, we will have other runs or not. So tell your friends if you like the film.
Another question, comments? Yeah, in the back, yes. Okay, did people hear that? Aaron is in the film as a child, and so now when he's making the film, what kind of emotions did this evoke in you to see yourself and to maybe recall what that was like as a child?
Well, it was complicated. I mean, first of all, home movies to the person who's there are just automatically very evocative because you're, I don't know, faced with the passage of time, and it's just very intense there. But it was also interesting because I hadn't remembered, obviously, a lot of things. Like I didn't remember videotaping Howard, for example. And over the years, you know, people would ask, or I would talk about Howard, my uncle, and people would ask me about him and say, oh, well, you were so small, you know, how well do you remember him? But I always had very vivid memories of him. And not so much just him, but the whole thing around him. And seeing that was interesting because when you look through a camera, you know, that image that you're recording really stays in your brain forever. And I think in a weird way, that camera was also part of kind of the bigness of looking at Howard. But it was very, very emotional, and also because I have a son who the film is dedicated to. And it was very touching to see that dynamic and actually learn from Howard in a way as a parent, how he gave such undivided attention, which is what he did for me and what he did for everybody. I mean, we talk about the reason why he left such a lasting impact, you know, everywhere. When he was with you, he was really there. You know, he was really present in everyone's life. And it made me, you know, think about that, and hopefully I'm taking that on. So it was at once very profound to look back and experience that, but also very useful to kind of be able to sit with him, hang out with him, and kind of learn from him. In 2000 whatever, when he died in 1989, it was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, in the back. Did everyone hear that? What does Aaron see as the difference between New York now and New York then from the perspective of a filmmaker?
Money. I mean, I think there were two things. One, it was cheap. I mean, Brad showed me Howard's lease for his loft on Prince and Bowery in '78, which was $100 a month. You know, so you had time to do your real work. And where can you find that anywhere? That, and also it was pre-internet, so, you know, obviously, but communities were actual communities, and there was something very tactile, I think, going on there as far as the exchange of ideas and, and also intimacy, sex, and drugs, you know, this being pre-AIDS. I mean, there was a whole interwoven fabric and very energetic. So that was taking place at the same time.
I think in the film, Sarah Driver, who was very important to getting this film off the ground, talks about there was this energy that people just plunged in and did it, whether they had gone to school or they were trained or whatever. People just did it from nothing, with nothing. And that's something you do not find anymore. So,
yeah, and to second that, something that Sarah said was there was a real desire that they had to take risks and make mistakes, because that's how you would learn, which is one thing to say, but that was actually the practice then. And we talked about the difference now, where everything is very fast, and you know, it can be quite damaging to you, your career or whatever, to take a big risk and make a big mistake, because you're not supposed to do that necessarily. And that's a big difference too.
one more, that's all we have time for? Yeah, right here.
Yeah, well, one of the very beautiful things about doing this movie was getting reacquainted with Howard's world, basically. And I got to know Daryl Pinckney, who you see in the film, quite well, and then he released a very beautiful novel called Black Deutschland. And we've optioned it, and we're adapting that to do as my next film.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the film. Thank you all.